So instead of shorter gentlemen and taller gentlemen who are transforming into people who serve God, where their height and shape doesn't matter, right? Okay, because you see people call them names, right? The E words, right? Skinny, fatty, right? Dummy, right? It doesn't matter how smart you are. It matters you serve God and you're transforming into something greater. But when they're not serving God, and they're not, and their offspring won't be able to, it's saying they're like dung on the ground. Then if you're short, then you're just a pipsqueak instead of a shorter gentleman with the heart of a giant, right? If you're tall and you're still alive, you're some kind of Ichabod or some kind of big brute, some kind of Goliath fool. Okay? If you're overweight, instead of being somebody who's coming to God, you're fucking some kind of fat idiot. You see what I'm saying? So they gave up the ability to be greater. That's why it's called Lamentations, right? Lament as in mental, ations. So their lay mentality is alpha shun. They're shunning the Spirit of God. They're literally shunning me as a date. Okay, can they then sit there as they date rebels that are goblins and warlocks? Some Luciferian doing spells, trying to look better than other people. Can you imagine being so fucking dumb that you're trying to look better than other people when you're some kind of pan, spirit-having piece of fucking privileged shit? People need to understand these things. You might say, well, that's too harsh. No, you weren't harsh enough. You weren't serious enough when you raised your kids. Now they won't stand with Christ at the most important time of history because there's some kind of a bitch. And that's fucking pathetic. Spiritually desolate, zero value, low value trash everywhere. It's the same as hate speech? No. This is some kind of bullying? When somebody, is letting their kids get fucked in the ass by the New World Order, and someone says stop being a bitch, if you call that bullying, you need to get your head checked. Okay. Where was I? Let's just go back to verse 13. From on high he sent fire, sent it down into my bones. He spread a net for my feet and turned me back. He made me desolate and faint all day long. For my sins have been bound into a yoke. By his hands they were woven together. They have been hung on my neck, and the Lord has sapped my strength. He has given me into the hands of those I cannot withstand. The Lord has rejected all the warriors in my midst. He has summoned an army against me to crush my young men. In his winepress the Lord has trampled virgin daughter Judah. See, when I just read it right there, if you didn't have the explanation before, you wouldn't see, A, that I'm right, B, that it needs to be said in a way that's more serious than how the author has said it. He says, the Lord has rejected all the warriors in my midst. You're like, yeah, so what? He has summoned an army against me to crush my young men. Yeah, it's kind of sad. In his winepress, the Lord has trampled virgin daughter Judah. You're like, what is he talking about? In a winepress? Okay, it has something to do with crushing their essence, right? So it explains it in a way that's pretty serious, but not serious enough. Their warriors are not warriors. They don't deserve the title of warriors. They're soldiers, they're military, they're gangs, they're bodybuilders, they're martial artists. Anybody who thinks that they're a man, everyone thinks they're protecting their family, they're some kind of a pushover, pussy-ass, namby-pamby, punk-ass, bitch-made-ass fool. Disloyal. At risk of sounding like Chaining Day, okay? It's like what Denzel Washington was trying to get at in his true form. They're a disloyal, fool-made, bitch-made, punk-ass motherfucker. The Lord has rejected them for being a bitch. He said, everyone, line up. We're going to go to war. They said, we're scared. No. We only fight for our complexes, our selfish political movements. That's what they said. So I'm a right-winger. That's just the TARS, right? Scared to death when it comes to manning up for God. They couldn't imagine doing it. The top martial artist ever says, stop being a bitch. Like, no, I'm too much of a bitch. Just like my forefathers. Just like them. From some bitch-ass fucking shit. You see how that's more serious? It might change my voice. But imagine how I said it before a bunch of sniveling pussies who are bred to be bitch changed my voice covertly. Imagine how it was said then. And imagine how fucking stupid they look right now that I've said that. Oh, shit. No. Ain't not supposed to point that out. Some bitch-ass fucking shit. You wonder why they're rejected by God. Why don't praise their bitch? Because they're not in the spirit of God, they're in the spirit of bitch. And they want to say some bitch shit. They say, just like your grandma. My grandma has offspring worth having. Yours? Produce bitch. They're better off taking a shit than having a fucking kid. You bitch ass motherfucker. Like I gotta explain that. Your wives know it, your kids know it. Pussy ass motherfuckers. Anyway. It says, this is why I weep, and my eyes overflow with tears. No one is near to comfort me, no one to restore my spirit. My children are destitute because the enemy has prevailed. Your grandmother's children are destitute because the devil's beta spirit prevailed over your family spirits because they're bitch. That's what's fucking happened here. I don't want to see any of you motherfuckers looking proud. You bitch ass motherfuckers. You cowards. Outside the gates type of pussy. Zion stretches out her hands, but there is no one to comfort her. The Lord has decreed for Jacob that his neighbors become his foes. Jerusalem has become unclean, an unclean thing among them. Jerusalem became a piece of fucking shit, is what it's saying. She'd be like, no, it's just talking about at the time. No, it's talking about a vision of the future. And if you were really Jews or Christians or Muslims, you would know that. If your teachers were really fucking learned, they would know that. And they would have prepared you, instead of making you a bitch, they would have prepared you to be a man. But their spirits make the Simpsons look fucking tough. What the fuck is wrong with you people? The Lord is righteous, yet I rebelled against his command, is what they're saying. Not me. I'm doing the right thing. I'm telling you how it is. You look at this thing, there's nothing they can say about it. A religious person listen to this might be like, oh, that's rude. Well, you don't say it that way. They might act like some kind of fairy pussy that pretends that Jesus magically was wrong when he told the moneylenders about themselves. That John the Baptist magically was fucking mistaken to call him a brood of fucking vipers. That Isaiah was magically wrong to call him a brood of fucking evildoers. But they know I'm right. Listen, all you peoples, look on my suffering. My young men and young women have gone into exile. I called to my allies, but they have betrayed me. My priests and my elders perish in the city while they search for food to keep themselves alive. They don't have the presence of God. The bread stands for the presence of God, the fruit of righteous actions. There's none there for them. See, Lord, how distressed I am. I am in torment within, and in my heart I am disturbed, for I have been most rebellious outside. The sword bereaves, inside there is only death. People have heard my groaning, but there is no one to comfort me. My enemies have heard of my distress. They rejoice at what you have done. May you bring the day you have announced, so they may become like me. So he's saying that he's suffering, and he's saying that he wants these people to suffer. He wants the people of Jerusalem to suffer. He wants the people of the nations around him to suffer. He wants them to suffer. So you're looking at what the devil's mentality. When we get into Lamentations 2, you're going to see that clearly. Okay, and I'll probably have to make this one over again because they provoked me during the making of it. They covertly got at my grandmother who passed away, in terms of saying something. I'm sure you kind of picked up on that earlier. When you see this kind of, when I stop and I fire back that way, it's because they're using their technologies to covertly communicate to me in various ways. It might be in person, it might be, however, it might be through the phone. I don't care to elaborate on that more because a lot of people are far too immature to admit the reality of that situation. They were just raised wrong. They work in law enforcement. They enforce Satan's rape cult behind the scenes law and not the law that they're supposed to enforce. Okay. So where was I? Okay. It says, may you bring the day you have announced so they become like me. Let all their wickedness come before you. Deal with them as you have dealt with me because of all my sins. My groans are many and my heart is faint. Okay, so when we get to Lamentations 2 again, I'm mad at everyone according to their deeds. I don't give a shit if, it's the whites or the Jews or the LGBT or the main people doing it. Whoever's doing it, I'm the most mad at. Okay, my soul, it cannot be tricked like flesh can be tricked. Your brain, what have you. Okay, but I know for sure that it's white Jews and LGBT people are the main ones leading the charge. The person who wrote Lamentations knew that. The person who wrote the New Testament knew it. They knew at the time that the people would become the Romans, and their spirits were haunting the world. They were giving the world a hard time, that they were kind of leading the charge. And that there was people in Jerusalem and so on that were in their spirits. So when we get to Lamentations 2, I'll go ahead and read the first verse here. What the hell? Okay. It says, "How the Lord has covered daughter Zion with the cloud of his anger. He has hurled down the splendor of Israel from heaven to earth. He has not remembered his footstool in the day of his anger." Now, it says in Paul's letters that Jerusalem in this world is lost in sin. They're with the devil. And we see in Luke 10:18, it says, he replied, I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. So Jesus said, I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. In Lamentations 2, there says there's a vision to the prophet that says, he has hurled down the splendor of Israel from heaven to earth. He has not remembered his footstool in the day of his anger, and so on and so forth. We'll get to that in the next video. Now, I think a lot of you think that I've been too harsh in this video. When you consider the subject matter, it has to be said in a way that's similar to how I said it. Okay? And because the English language and a lot of languages, without cussing, are insufficient. I can't say, those twits, those jerks, those guys are assholes. This doesn't cover it. It doesn't cover it. Think about the difference between saying, you're a fucking jerk, man, and saying the way I said it, and saying you're a bitch-ass motherfucker with a certain intensity that is simply not associated with saying you're a jerk. The types of people who say you're a jerk, you're a twit, you're a pain in the ass, aren't the types of people who declare the anger of God effectively. The types of people that refuse to name people as groups aren't the types of people that declare the anger of God and convey it effectively. So I had no choice but to say it that way. And when God's chosen one was conveying God's anger, and they insulted my grandmother, who was like she's literally the most noble woman I've ever even heard of. Okay, you can imagine that there had to be repercussions now, and there has to be repercussions forever. Now, I'd love to hear your counter-argument. I know that I can be a very serious guy in my videos. I'm serious. They just changed my voice. I can be very angry. But if you disagree with me, feel free to explain why. As long as you proceed in a respectable manner, I'm not going to, be very hard on you for it. Okay? If you say something like, oh, you're a fucking jerk, you shouldn't have said that, pal. Yeah, that's just disrespectful. You're a fucking idiot. Okay, then I'm going to fucking, I'm going to chastise you severely. But if you honestly, from your heart, believe that I shouldn't say it that way, and you're like a kind lady, nice old lady, or you're some kind guy or something, okay, then I'm not going to chastise you severely. I'm going to just explore it with you. I'm fair and just and right. Okay, when you look at the that's why I left it on the screen the whole time. And you look at the statue of Pan, that arrogance, that malicious look, that smirk, that rape cult way about him. Rapist, piece of shit. Pan means all, for all the Greco-Roman deities, would mean all the rapists among them. In a sense, they're all rapists. Mars raped Rhea. Zeus and the rape of Europa and the rape of Ganymede and the rape of Hera and on and on and on. Okay. Poseidon, he raped, was it Medusa? And on and on. Dionysus raping this and raping that. And anyone they could find. The rape. Changing forms, rape by deception. These forms are figurative. He didn't literally turn into a swan. It's about setting the stage and the atmosphere to convince people to sleep with people they otherwise wouldn't. Things like that is what it's referring to when it says he changed forms, right? Into a bull, a swan, whatever.